Hey guys, Joey Shanks here once again, and this week's episode is going to deal with 3D camera tracking and blending in practical in-camera effects footage with 3D tracking data. Now, I don't have that much experience with camera tracking, let alone 3D tracking, but I decided to give it a go and give it a shot, and the After Effects 3D camera tracker is really quite amazing on how accurate your tracking points can be. The one thing to take into account is it's imperative that you get the right kind of footage to create these 3D tracking moves. Pans, simple tilts aren't going to really produce the greatest results. You're going to need to be going forward, going back, making nice turns as you're moving to really use that 3D depth that these points are going to take out. So let's open up some project files and I'll show you some footage I shot, and I'll show you how I blended some cloud tank footage shots into these in-camera plates that I shot driving around in my car. So let's get into that. Now let me pull up my final composite that I did. This is me just outside, and I shot it at 60 frames a second and then converted it back down to 24, so that's why it's a little slower but also smoother. So let's kind of go through this and show you how I accomplished it. Now, for those of you who don't know that much about 3D camera tracking, I'm going to provide a couple links for you guys to check out. So if this is a little bit over your head, click on a couple of links I provide in the video info to kind of get caught up on a little bit more in depth on what 3D camera tracking is. So here is my project, and let me just show you now that is the shot I shot outside my house, just walking, pointing up, looking at the trees. Nothing too crazy, but I find, and from what I've seen, handheld stuff really works great for 3D camera tracking. I think it helps sell the effect a lot more, and it just gives it that extra element of reality, of kind of a found footage feel that makes the visual effect really blend in with the world you're actually filming. So I just simply shot this at 60 frames a second, and I figured shooting at a higher frame rate will give you more frames, and your moves with being handheld will be smoother when playback at 24 frames a second. But that's going to make your computer work extra hard when you're doing all this stuff in After Effects. So there's kind of a give and take relationship between that. So let's just go over this from the beginning. Make a new composition. We'll call this Moon in Sky. And we're going to use the 3D camera tracker. And what you want to do is go to Animation and go to Track Camera. There we go. You're going to see it says Analyzing Background. Now sometimes this will take, a minute, 2 minutes, just depends. And if you can see over here, there's a few different options you can use, but the default settings usually work the best. But you can change it to a variable zoom if you have some zooms in your shot. And you can even open up this advanced area to detect if it's kind of like a nice simple shot with a landscape scene, or if you're just doing a simple tripod pan or tilt. So you could do some settings, but I kept it pretty simple for this and kept it on the default settings. And also you want to see what your average air is, and mine's 0.94 pixels. And from what I've seen online, if it's under 1.5 for your average air, then you're going to be okay for the most part. So I'm at 0.9, so that'll work. So we're going to highlight it, the 3D camera tracker in our effects here. And you see we have these nice little tracking points. And if we go around, it kind of makes this little target pattern. And that's kind of choosing between 3 points that's going to kind of create your camera and your null of where the plane will exist on. And you can always change that once you create it, but that's just a starting point. So I'm trying to find a spot where our plane is kind of going to exist where the moon is, where the moon's going to kind of be like that. So something like that, I think, right there is pretty good. So I'm going to right-click on it. I'm going to create null in camera. And now we have a 3D camera here. I play it, you see it stays fixed on that point. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so now I want to bring in, we want to bring in our visual effect that's going to be parented to this 3D camera tracker. And it is a cosmic plate I shot a while back. I call it Silhouette Moon, and it is this guy. I mean, pretty sweet, huh? So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use, I think we're gonna use this segment right here. So, and this is gonna take a lot of processing power just because the image is huge. It's a sequence of just images, but the detail in it is pretty amazing. Okay, so we brought it in, and look how big look how big that thing is. So we need to turn it into a 3D layer so it will track with the camera and with the null. So I do that there. You can still see it's incredibly huge. So let's move this back in Z space. And a lot of times what I do, I'll go to two camera view. I'll make this one the top. I'll make this one active camera. And I'll just push this back in Z space. There we go. Now we're starting to see some stuff. Okay. Then we'll go back to one view. Make sure we're on our active camera. And let's just play this real quick. And you see that it is kind of fixed to our tracking null. Let me bring this opacity down to 50 so we can kind of see it a little bit. So you can see it kind of stays on that point there. But we want this guy to be taking up quite a bit of the screen here. So let's scale it up even more to about maybe like that. That looks pretty good. So we'll set our blending mode to screen. Okay, so that looks, we're getting there. Now obviously we want the tree line and all these tree branches to exist in the foreground so it'll layer on top of this cosmic plate. So what we need to do is we can hide this for now. We want to duplicate our base layer, bring it up to the top, make sure you delete the 3D camera tracker because we don't need that data. Then let's duplicate it again. Let's solo them. Choose the first one, and we're going to use a levels filter. And what we want to do is just bring out the whites and crush the darks. So something like that. Then we're going to set the trap matte to Luma inverted matte. And as you can see, we created a nice alpha channel for the sky. Now if we turn our cosmic layer back on, all right, now it's starting to exist behind the tree line, which really helps sell that effect. Now, I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but one thing's going on here is that it's tracking, but you can see that moon is moving quite a bit in the background. And for that moon being so far away from where we're at, it shouldn't move hardly at all. So we need to change the point of interest on the camera. And that's something that we need to change where we go to Layer, we highlight our camera, and go to Layer, Camera Settings. We need to change this to a 2-node camera, which will allow us to change the point of interest. And we're going to go back to our top menu, top viewer, highlight the camera, and we need to take this little circle guy, this is our point of interest, and we need to just bring this guy out. And this will allow things in the very far back in Z space not to move as much. Now let's see where our cosmic element layer is. We kind of want to get it, our cosmic, as you can see, it's right there. There we go. Go back to our active camera. We might have to do some fine tuning with where this guy is. Now, as you can see, it holds a little bit better, I think, to the movement of the camera. So I think it's a lot more believable. All right, so that's looking pretty good so far. Now, I originally exported this and I was pretty happy with it, but I felt like this blue circle that is this moon was almost a little too blue, and it matched the sky because it is the sky. So I figured we needed to add a little bit of texture there. So I went and grabbed some texture images of the moon, and what I did was let's solo this. I dropped them in, and I just made a spherical mask. And you could use CC Sphere, but which will make it more of a three-dimensional sphere. But for this, I found that just a flat image of a moon texture worked just as good. So we need to make this a little bit bigger. Don't need that much brightness, so I brought it down to 35%, and I threw a little bit of a curves filter because I just want a little bit, just almost like a nice bump matte. A little bit of the tint just to bring a little bit more of a fade to it. And then I duplicated it and rotated it. And I set the blending mode to screen just so we get detail along the whole moon area. And I actually set this middle one to lighten, and this is just me kind of messing around with it. You guys could work on a number of different combinations. And then the bottom one I set to normal, all around with an opacity of 35%. So it's just how much contrast do you want? That's with none, that's with 1, 1, 2, 3. So that third one really, with the normal blending mode, really finishes it up nicely. And I added a little bit of, I actually boosted the curves up quite a bit just so the contrast will come out a little bit and these colors will come out a little bit. And this is the finished result, which I think looks really cool. And it was really refreshing to find out that I could take one of these really beautiful cosmic shots that I've created, but I thought I could never really, what I saw was what I got. I never thought I could actually blend it into a real in-camera environment, where I thought I would just have to stick with it as a wide shot. But that's not the case. Okay, so there's a few different instances of this shot. So there's even this part here. So I thought so I found it interesting, what if I just swapped it out and used this segment here as opposed to this segment. And what it came out to be was this. So I'm having quite a bit of fun with this. I'm still learning, but the most important thing is to shoot good video plates that you're going to incorporate into your visual effects. So like these backdrops that I'm shooting, they might not be the prettiest, but how I position the camera, my horizon point, keeping certain things in the frame the entire time, having good things that have a lot of contrast so you can get good tracking points is really half the battle. Because if you don't get good footage that will track well and that will make for a nice composited effect, it's not going to work. So I would practice shooting the same shot but shooting it a different way. Like, so for instance, this tree shot, I would shoot it a wide shot of it tilting up to it. I would shoot another one of you panning to it, another one of you walking away from it, another one looking up and spinning 360. So and then trying them out and see what tracks the best in After Effects. Because like I said, if your footage doesn't work with the camera tracker, you're not going to be able to do anything with it. And looking at this shot, you wouldn't think that this shot is that great at all or works that great, but it actually really does. So let me show you guys some other shots that I created using the same effect. And some of them are a little more raw and don't look as good, but I'll show you them anyways because, like I said, I'm just learning. All right, so this is the one I called it Moon Drive, and simple shot. Car shots work nicely because you're traveling in one direction. This is actually just a little drop of paint that's in a cloud tank, and I think it composited really well because the cloud tank actually had a pinkish hue to it as well. All right, here's a interesting one. This one kind of reminds me of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Kind of the corner, on the street where it actually really does, where they park and they wait for the aliens to come over the hill, and everybody's waiting and watching. And I composited some cloud tank footage. This is just little paint particles coming down the cloud tank, and it kind of looks like a nuclear blast just went off. Definitely works for this part right here. Here's another one. I think I just composited a little bit differently. This one's not my finest one. Kind of looks like a Dr. Seuss cloud up there, doesn't it? Yeah, not great. We've all seen my helicopter moon. iPhone footage. So even iPhone stuff works pretty good. This one's kind of trippy. And here's the footage I used for this one. So this one, tracked that cloud up there from Cloud Tank. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Donnie Darko. This is another Cloud Tank shot. Blended this in with the sunset to make it look like there's this sun here with this crazy haze and this atmosphere. Turned out pretty good, not great, but like I said, these are all very early tests I'm doing. So I'm kind of excited that I'm getting results with what I've already shot, and I may go back and reshoot some Cloud Tanks and some cosmic plates with this in mind. It's kind of trippy. Looks like something's sucking in all this stuff. I don't know if the color scheme really matches, but here's some earlier ones. This is did some day shots with I put in the background there. Cloud Tank stuff once again. And here's that one from the previous episode that I teased about. It's that little plane I did. So I did a track of this shot with my iPhone. I was actually driving and doing this, which I wouldn't recommend. And I was able to pull tracking points all along the tree line. What I did was I then did a actual 3D model jet strike from Element 3D, just so I could see the angle that worked best for the composite. And then, so with that in mind, I kind of shot it against a white backdrop and kind of had an idea of what I wanted it to do. And I shot it 60 frames a second, and I should have had the propeller spinning in post, but I didn't. Is that still not perfect, but like I said, I think I'm getting there, and that makes me excited. This is one of Jupiter. I just find that the sunset, you just already have atmosphere, so I just find the haze makes it just a little bit easier to blend. And having stuff moving in the foreground or the middle ground helps. Like that bird flying there, your eyes kind of drawn to that, and you're looking at Jupiter here, but your eyes also looking at the bird, which helps sell the effect more because you're not just looking for the flaws of the shot. You're seeing this bird exist in the environment. And it would have been nice if this light post was on here, because that would have been another thing in the foreground to add some energy to the shot. Here's a UFO shot I did. Now you see I tried to add in some shadow down there. And if there's any good shadow tutorials out there, please let me know, guys, because I'm having trouble creating shadows and finding good tutorials on how to do shadows really well. There's a shot, and these overhead shots where you turn the camera kind of 180 degrees, as long as you get these trees back here, this kind of footage tracks really well. And like I said, having a little bit of atmosphere with the clouds and the sunset helps sell the shot. And that's with Cloud Tank footage and some stars. I don't know if you guys seen the movie Noah, but what I really loved in Noah in the first act is there's a lot of daytime shots with the blue sky, but there were stars in the sky. And I think it added just a nice fantasy element to it, that this was another era, another time, and I really found it was a very subtle effect, but I found it really beautiful. And this is what I was trying to go with that. There's a nice shot of the bird flying with this cosmic background. Like I said, something for your eyes to watch and not just follow the visual effect element. So I would suggest you guys all get your iPhone out and shoot some footage and shoot multiple shots, shoot different camera moves of the same shot and see how it works with trying to track it. And that's the best way you're gonna learn how to understand what works the best for trying to get good footage plates to use for 3D camera tracking. So for next week's episode, I am going to be talking about the pros and cons of switching from Final Cut Pro to Adobe Premiere. I've been working on Final Cut Pro for probably 10 years, and I'm starting to make the switch. And for those of you who haven't, I'm gonna tell you some of the things that really I like about Premiere and the things that I wish Premiere had that Final Cut has. So tune in for that next Wednesday. Thanks for watching, guys. This is Joey Shanks, and I'm out. Later.